Well, can you please let the people know who you are and just more about Onyx Therapy Group?
Absolutely. So I am Dr. LaNail Plummer. I am the CEO of Onyx Therapy Group. I'm also the founder. And Onyx Therapy Group is a mental health company that is based out of Washington, D.C. So our headquarters is in Washington, D.C., where we have 3 offices. We also have 4 offices in Maryland, an office in Pennsylvania, and an office in Minnesota. So super excited to be spreading out a bit. We are considered a mental health company because we are more than a clinical practice. So we have one clinical practice, or one side that is very clinical, led by my wonderful clinical director, Chanel Clay. And then we also have an education and training department, of which we go out to different schools and organizations, to the federal government and the local governments in the 4 states that we're in. And we provide training and consultation related to mental health. And as well as education. So special education is also a passion of ours. And then our third department is sourcing. So when a company says, hey, we want to have a mental health person, we just don't know how to find them, what to look for, what credentials they should have. Hey, Dr. Plummer, can you guys handle all that and just, assign them to our location? And we're like, absolutely. So we also have a sourcing department. So super excited about the work we've been doing since 2013. And yeah, that's who we are.
Yes, love it. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Plummer. And thank y'all so much. Make sure that you guys are dropping questions in the chat. And as always, I'm going to be tagging all of my guests in these lives as well. So make sure that you're tapping in as soon as possible. But Dr. Plummer, I'm going to be honorable of your time and just jump right into it. So you are a woman of many hats. As you mentioned, Onyx Therapy Group, the company as a whole, has a number of services that you provide. You are a soror, you are a vet, you are just amazing at what you do. And the crazy thing is, it's just like as women, especially with it being Women's History Month, we are literally making history as Black women every single day. And even though we are literally becoming our ancestors' wildest dreams, but also helping set the stage for the people that are coming after us, sometimes we kind of get caught up in our head and our emotions and whatnot. And so how do you specifically help Black women, women who are career oriented, who have their head on their shoulders, work through those emotions? And I don't want to label them negative because every emotion has its purpose, but how do you help people work through that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I did do all those things, didn't I? I guess the ancestors set me up pretty well. So my passion has always been in helping Black women. I do believe that Black women are the foundation of our world, not just our society, because that has many different implications and historical factors. But I do believe that we are the foundation, and so as we get to understand ourselves better, as we have more self-awareness, as we have more support, we're able to then heal our communities, right? And that's especially important to me being here in the US, because we have all of these factors, again, that are constantly tearing us down and trying to tear us apart. And like you mentioned, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. And one of the things we have to highlight when we say that is that our ancestors didn't have the opportunity to address their mental health. It actually wasn't safe for them during those times to address it in traditional kind of ways, to get caught up in those emotions, because it was going to be counterintuitive to their physical survival, right? There were certain elements they were not going to be able to change. So of course they had spirituality to maintain and to thrive the best way possible. But one of the things that they gave us through our life and through placing us here at this time is the opportunity to address our mental health, the opportunity to look at what these factors are, to look at how socialization impacts us, to look at how our race and our gender intersect together, and how that subsequently impacts our feelings and our decisions and our cultural outlook on life. And so I help Black women in many ways in addressing that. It may be directly through therapy, yes, but that is also customized based off of who that Black woman is, because although she may have factors of being a Black woman, there's other cultural elements that have a place too, right? Like, where did she grow up regionally? How did she grow up? What was her social economic status as she was growing up? Is it the same now? What are education levels? And those are all cultural factors that play a role into us as well. What we see is Black women, but what a Black woman experiences is more than just her skin color and her gender. So there's multiple ways that we help. It may be through direct therapy. It may be through behavioral support and accountability. It may be through addressing particular issues. It may be giving guidance and career counseling. It all depends on who this Black woman is. However, one of the things I also love to do professionally is support Black women on the professional side, right? So Onyx Therapy Group has about 33 staff members, and we contract with other folks for other reasons as well. And all the companies that we contract with are Black folks. And all of my staff members, most of my staff members, 99% of my staff members are Black women. And so when I was getting my doctorate, I had the opportunity to study Black women in professional settings, because that was another way that I wanted to support Black women. So support in terms of the therapy, yes, but also support in terms of professional development, so that supervisors and managers know how to work with Black women as well, right? Because we are unique and we are beautiful and we are magic, and you got to know how to handle magic, right? Because if you don't handle it right, the consequences could be grave. So that was one of my passions. That's one of my passions as well.
Oh, I love everything that you said. And first off, highlighting the importance of looking at the whole person. I think oftentimes society has forced us to compartmentalize. And even like you mentioned, like our ancestors, the people who came before us, we had to operate in this place of survival and forgetting the number of ways to thrive, because we didn't have that opportunity. That wasn't given to us. And so just being now fully in the moment, fully present, recognizing that I can be a daughter, I can be a sister, I can be a wife, I can be the CEO, I can be all of these things, and still be mindful of how all those things impact me and how I'm impacting those things in return. I love that. And then, like you mentioned, finding ways to cultivate, finding ways to make sure that we're tapping into those strengths, because I'm strengths-based and solution-focused as a therapist. So tapping into those strengths, that way we can create opportunities for other individuals. Like, the reason why I call this Sis Talks is because I want to remind my women of color that we can do life together with other women of color, and we don't have to do life alone, you know. So I love everything that you said.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, living life, you know, that living life together piece is so important. We were created, physically created of two people, not one person alone, right? Which means that for our existence to even be here means that we had to come in through community, right? We had to come in through a commune experience. And so our physical creation already was dependent on two people coming together. And then we come out and we understand then the power of village, right? How you have multiple people that are helping to take care of that baby and raising that baby. It's not just their mother and father, or two mothers or two fathers, or whatever the dynamic is. And so sometimes we get afraid, we've been burned, we've been concerned of that people don't value us properly. And so we try to remove ourselves from the community, but that's actually against the essence of who we are. The greater issue, the greater element is to find who should actually be in your community, right? The greater element is to decide who is there to support you. And they don't have to be exactly like you. In our old villages, and even some that are still here, everybody has different functions. Everybody isn't the healer. Everybody isn't the child care person. Everybody isn't the doctor. Everybody isn't the clothes maker. Everybody isn't gathering things. However, there's a person that represents each of those areas. And when they all come together, that's how we have the village, right? And so it's important for us as Black women, although we've been hurt, although we've been burned, to also see who's in our village, and to be very strategic about who we allow to be in our village. If somebody is making you feel uncomfortable consistently and it's not causing growth, because sometimes we got to be challenged in order to grow, but if they're causing toxic feelings and behaviors in you, then they're not the person that needs to be in your village. It doesn't mean turn your back to community. It means find a replacement, right? And some of that came up in my work, in my dissertation as well, when I was researching Black women, because there is this hesitancy to always engage with community, because they never know what the outcome is going to be.
Definitely. I mean, that's the essence of social support, right? People forget it's support at the end of the day. And so understanding what that social support may look like for you, whether it's instrumental, okay, am I going to find those individuals that are going to be very task oriented in nature because that's how they show up for help in my way? Or are they going to be so emotional? Are they going to allow me to have that safe space to be able to have a listening ear and maybe even have a hug or whatever the case may be? Like, how does your tribe show up for you? And in return, how do you show up for them? I think when we talk about like community as a whole, I love how you were able to just highlight the collectivist culture that we've come from. And sometimes we kind of struggle with manifesting that even in the here and now, whether it's at work or maybe within our own business or with our parent-teacher conference with the kids or whatever the case may be. But just finding ways to tap into those strengths and tap into those solutions across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny you mentioned the parent-teacher conferences. My oldest child is almost 17, so we're at the place where she's looking at colleges. Oh, I can't believe it. I'm like, oh, do I really have a kid going to college? What? Anyhow, her college counselor is also a sister girl, and the way the conversation went today with my daughter and her counselor and myself, it felt like community. It was like, okay, how do we build this young woman up? How do we give her the resources? How do we have some difficult conversations, difficult elements of the conversation, but frame it in a way that she feels that it is strength-based, that it is supportive, that she is able to be constructive in this element. And me and this sister, we've never really met in person, but we got into that space, and it was this common experience, this common knowledge. And so talking to my daughter afterwards, she felt it as well. She was like, yes, it felt like, we were together, and she was able to answer some of those questions. I would love for more Black women to engage in those kind of experiences, right? To understand, like you mentioned, every person in your life doesn't have to be this close, intimate emotion, doesn't have to take on this close, intimate emotional role. I like to think about friends and associates in concentric circles, right? So we have our immediate circle. That's our go-to. Those are our people, right? Like if something happens, they're there consistently, always. And what they ask in return is a sense of reciprocity. And then we go out and we have outer circles. And these may be people that we see, that we remember from school, that we hang out with, people that serve as resources and positive elements in our life, but they're not the closest ones. And that's okay. And then there's another outer circle. These may be associates. They don't have to be your best friend. They may not be invited to your COVID party. They may not be invited to all of your speaking engagements. They are people that that are in the peripheral, and they still have your best interest in mind. See, I think the problem is that many of us want everybody to be in this inner circle, and it's not appropriate. And then it's draining to us as well, because when you have too many people in that inner circle and they're expecting reciprocity, you can't give to all of these people. So you have to be strategic about how they play a role in your life, and who they are, right? And what that looks like. But to do that, you have to be self-aware in terms of what is it that I need? What is it that I need from this person? And what am I willing to give to this person? How can we interact with each other and make it clear for everybody, so that you don't have people in the outer circle thinking they're in the inner circle, and then their feelings get hurt at some point, right? So it is a matter of self-awareness and having conversation and being in communication. And many of that could be guided by our ancestors too, because they chose for us to be here. So why not go ahead and ask them and ask God, what is the purpose of these people in our lives?
Yes. And I was like, oh, that sounds like ultimately at the end of the day, making sure that you are clear on your boundaries.
Yes.
We can be very inclusive in nature, like taking down those guardrails when it comes to the different components of our lives, even when it comes to the certain relationships. But ultimately, the best way to grow healthy relationships is having those healthy boundaries. I think oftentimes people vacillate between like that polarized way of thinking, that black or white, either you're going to be my ride or die, or you just not going to be that at all. Understanding kind of like sexuality is like very fluid. It's across a spectrum. It's the same way that we do that to help protect ourselves, so. Yeah.
We're designed that way. Our mind is designed that way too. You know, when we talk about the ego, and the ego in a psychological way, not the ego in the way that it's often thrown out there, right? You know, you bruise my ego. Well, we don't really mean it like that. We're more so thinking about how in the psychological language of ego, it's really a matter of how your mind gets to be protected, right? And how you get to decide what is good for you and what is not good for you. And sometimes as Black women, we are raised and conditioned to allow to not have boundaries, if you will. You know, like our parents start early when they say, go over there and hug Auntie Susie and Uncle Johnny. And you're like, I don't want to hug them because there's something intuitively about you that makes you feel like you don't want to hug them. But your parents make you cross that boundary. So you start crossing boundaries early in life, and it kind of gets reinforced throughout time. Especially with Black women, it gets we have to be stronger in terms of what we think about boundaries, because sometimes we want to please another person, or we want to be accepted, or we don't want to face rejection, or whatever the case may be. And so we loosen up our boundaries. But here's my thought about boundaries. If we don't have boundaries with ourselves, there's no way anybody else is going to have boundaries with us. And that also means when you said you were done working at 6 o'clock, and 6:15 come around and you like, oh, I'm gonna just do one more. Honey, you have just crossed your boundary. So when your boss emails you at 6:30, like, can you do this email? You can't be mad at your boss because you also crossed your boundary, right? When you tell yourself, I'm gonna rest this weekend and I'm gonna just have a good time with myself, you know, watch my shows, read my books or whatever. And then you cross that to go take care of somebody else that's not required. You can't be mad when your spouse or your partner is then violating your personal space, right? Because what they see is you are not staying true to your own boundaries. So why should they? This idea of we teach people how to treat us, we teach them how to treat us not because we tell them how to treat us. We teach them how to treat us because they see how we treat ourselves. And if we treat ourselves well, and we treat ourselves with boundaries, and we respect ourselves, then it becomes quite natural for them to want to do the same thing. And that's who you end up attracting in those moments as well.
Yes, Dr. Plum, do not get me hyped over here.
Listen,
Okay?
you know how we do, Soror. You know how we do.
You know, because it's so important, right? And when I was thinking about the importance of like respecting our boundaries, and even when we're thinking about how we've grown up as women of color, right? Like people are constantly telling us, build your self-esteem, you got to be confident, keep your head held high, do this. But then on the flip side, depending on what generation you were raised by, oh, you're smelling yourself, you better calm down, make sure them skirts all the way down to your ankles. And so it's just like we're growing up trying to figure out, like, do we self-advocate or do we people please? And then like as that progresses past teenage years and even adulthood and whatnot, we're still trying to figure out where we are. And the work that you do, especially for us as women of color, I think that's super important, because not only are you empowering us to find our voice, but you're also teaching other people how to respect our voice. Yes. And that's so key.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the work that I love to do, because like we started out saying, we are the root, right? We are the foundation. I have a lot of plants in my house, right? I've gotten into plants. I love plants. I was talking to one of my friends recently because one of my orchids, which are really challenging to keep, right? One of my orchids isn't doing well. And my friend said, did you check the root? When's the last time you looked at the root? Don't worry about the leaves. Don't worry about the petals right now. Let's try to take care of the root. And when you take care of the root, everything else is able to blossom. Everything else is able to do what it's supposed to do. The leaves get to grow and be beautiful and shine brightly, and the petals are beautiful and they smell good and everybody is attracted to them. The plant itself is better when the root is stronger. We as Black people are the roots. We as Black women are the roots, and we have to take care of ourselves, because if nobody else is going to do it, then how's it going to get done? It has to be us. And because of village, sometimes we have to look at each other and say, sis, it's time for you to take care of yourself a little bit more. Sis, you know, we say doing the most, right? You're doing the most. Let's bring it back a little bit, sis. It's okay to rest. It's okay to relax. It's okay to check in on yourself. It's okay to stop responding to that email and not responding to that text message too, right? Like when we as the root are well, then everything else does what it's supposed to do. So
Yes, and I do want to remind individuals that just because somebody isn't checking on you, it's okay for you to still vocalize that you need help. It's okay to operate in a space of vulnerability, because I think oftentimes we as women, like you said, like, sis, you doing it, you do the doggone thing. I see you over there, you better go, girl, this, that, and the third. But we sometimes get lost in the sauce thinking that, okay, we're so used to seeing our friends, our loved ones operate at a certain capacity. And when they fall off, it's just like, dang, what happened?
yeah.
You know,
Yes.
yeah.
It's also funny that you mentioned that. One of my key terms, and I use it only with a small group, my small inner circle. I'm quick to tell people I'm needy. Like, oh, today I'm needy. Today I need a lot of attention today, right? And because I use it so frequently, they know what that means, right? And they know, okay, she's gonna need a little bit more attention, and she needs a little bit more validation, and maybe she needs a little break, and they're responding well. So much so that now one of my homegirls says the same thing. Yesterday, she was like, it was rainy and gloomy here in the DC area. And she was like, I'm needy, y'all. And we were like, okay, what do you need in this moment? And we were able to fold in, and whoever was close went over to her house and made sure she got a hug. And we sent her, gift cards to get something to eat and things like that, just to make sure she felt that she was good. But again, this is the inner circle where we're able to say, I'm needy. And it could be that simple as saying, I need something today. I don't know what I need specifically, but I need something, and I just need you to kind of show up for me. Again, that's not something we've always been socialized to do, but it works. It alerts people so that they know how to support you in that moment. And it's okay, because guess what? We were, again, designed to be in community, which means that we're not supposed to do it all by ourselves, not even live our own single life by ourselves. We're supposed to do it. We're supposed to have people that invest in us, that love in us, that take care of us, that doesn't stop because we turn 21 or 45 or however one is.
Yes, yes, yes. Even going along with the analogy of like the flowers and the plants and whatnot, understanding that you have like the gardener, you have those individuals that are coming to be your sun, the individuals that's going to turn over your soil, provide fertilizer if need be, to pluck off the bugs if necessary. So find those individuals that are going to operate in that manner for you, and then be willing to identify what role you're going to play when tending somebody else's flower as well.
Yeah.
Dr. Plummer, please let the people know, speaking of community, let the people know how they can tap into everything that you're doing. Where can they find you?
Yes, absolutely. I'm everywhere. No. I'm also faculty at Hopkins, so that's another way that people can find me if they have questions about research and what it looks like for the Black community, because I do a lot of research there. Most people get in contact with me through Instagram, right? So this is our business page, Onyx Therapy Group. But I'm also open to people reaching out to me on my personal page too, which is Mahogany Sunshine, which makes sense, right? The mahogany, the skin color, the sunshine,
Yeah.
extra bubbly. So Onyx Therapy Group and Mahogany.
Perfect. And one last.
Sorry about that. Okay. Am I back? Can you hear me well?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. And then our website is another way that people could get in contact with me or the entire company. And that is onyxtherapygroup.com. So Onyx, like the crystal, and we were strategic with that, right? The crystal is Black, it is beautiful, but it's also the crystal that represents absorbing negative energy and transforming it into something positive. And so we are Onyx, Onyx, therapygroup.com. We're also on LinkedIn and Facebook and all the things as well. But the best way to get in contact with us is definitely through Instagram and through our website, especially because we're often with clients, and so we can't respond to the phone as quickly as other companies can.
Perfect. So there is no excuse for y'all to not be able to reach her, okay? Because she is everywhere. When I say everywhere, everywhere. Dr. Plummer, one last question.
Yeah.
What what recommendations would you give to an individual who is starting their wellness journey? Like, obviously, when we talk about therapy, therapy is so important, especially when it comes to tending to our mental health overall. And so for anybody out there that's still trying to figure it out, trying to work through the stigmas and stereotypes associated with therapy, what advice would you give to an individual who's trying to start their mental wellness journey?
Yeah, if you're trying to go directly the therapy route, which is of course what I would recommend and believe, it's understanding that therapy is just a matter of support. We go to the dentist, we go to the doctor. Since you have locks just like me, we go to our loctician. You know, we go to Sephora and get our makeup. We go to people to support us in the things that we want. And it's the same with therapy. You go to a therapist to support you in your own mental wellness. We go to everybody for everything. Why not go to a therapist for support around your mental health? There's nothing wrong with that. Another thing to consider, in addition to the therapy, if for us that are at home a lot, is to make sure that you're paying attention to your five senses and you're constantly investing in your sensory experience. So making sure you're paying attention to the smells that are in your house. You can adjust that and change it through sage and Palo Santo, through candles, through flowers, you know, just highlighting that sensory element. You may also want to pay attention to what you're looking at, right? Because all of your senses are connected, of course, to your brain, and then connected to your feelings, and then connected to your thoughts. So you want to pay attention to the things that you're seeing, the things that you're smelling, the things that you're tasting, the things that you're touching, and the things that you're hearing as well. So playing music that feels inspiring and uplifting, smelling things around your house that cause you to have senses of nostalgia or feelings of peace, you know, paying attention to what you're looking at, the shows that you're watching, the books that you're reading, the people that are in your life. So making sure that you're paying attention to all that. Real quick around taste, because that is a sense, make sure that you're paying attention to what you're eating, because it has a direct correlation to your mental health. There's chemicals in food, both positive and negative, that intersect with the chemicals in our body. For instance, if we're drinking too much alcohol, that it serves as a depressant, and it will depress some of the functionings of your brain as well. And you might find yourself spiraling into these depressive episodes. It's not just because you're drinking a lot, it's also because of the chemicals in the alcohol. And so you want to pay attention to that, and as well as our food that we're eating, etc. I get so excited about these. Sorry, sis. But therapy, 100%. In addition to therapy, pay attention to what you are experiencing in life through your five senses.
I'm so glad that you went into that, because and this is exactly why I say mental wellness, because like we mentioned earlier, looking at ourselves from a holistic perspective, not just culturally, not just like our identity overall, but like how are you tending to your body? How are you tending to your career related goals? How are you tending to your spirituality and your environment, things of that nature? So yes, wellness is key, and thank you for tapping into that.
Absolutely, sis. I appreciate you.
Of course. Thank you. And I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time. And y'all, like I mentioned, feel free to slide into her DMs. I'm really big on sliding into DMs. So make sure that you're sliding in and getting connected with Dr. Plummer and the Onyx Therapy Group. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
See you later, sis. Thank you.
No problem.
Bye.